If you are a game developer, how do you go from zero to a billionaire? In 2009, you were 30 years old. You didn't have the script of a college dropout turned entrepreneur, nor were you some Silicon Valley prodigy. You worked as a back-end developer doing dull work for a photo-sharing website called Jalbum in Stockholm, working 9 to 5, fixing endless bugs, earning a salary that kept you from starving but would never make you rich. Your life was utterly mediocre. The only outlet was returning to your cramped rented apartment after work to write some indie games in Java just for fun. Tired of the beautifully rendered but rigidly played 3D blockbusters on the market, you decided to do the exact opposite. You coded a first-person game made entirely of crude, pixelated blocks. No plot, no quest markers, just mining and crafting. You named it Minecraft. On May 17th, you uploaded this barely half-finished alpha version to the indie game forum TIG source. The price, €10. There was no overnight viral fame, no million-dollar donations. During the first week, you obsessively refreshed the back-end data, only to sell 40 copies in total. After deducting fees, those few €100 were barely enough for a few pints of cheap beer at the pub over the weekend. But on the forum, you saw a screenshot from a player. He had built a crude little matchbox shelter out of dirt blocks to hide from monsters. In that moment, a seed sprouted in your heart. You thought, maybe people really do need a world where they can call their own shots. For the next 6 months, you lived a double life. A submissive corporate drone by day, a manic code-crunching madman by night. You added a survival mode, crafting recipes, and most importantly, a green creature that silently sneaks up on the player and explodes with a sharp hiss, the Creeper. This was the gear that shifted your destiny. One weekend in early 2010, you woke up and habitually opened your computer to check your game's website traffic. A site that normally saw a few hundred IPs a day had suddenly breached 20,000 concurrent visitors. You thought you were getting hit by a DDoS attack until you followed the traffic source to a YouTube link. It was a video by Cnanners, a gaming YouTuber with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. In the video, he was excitedly showing his audience the magnificent wooden cabin he had spent all day building. Suddenly, a green creeper appeared out of nowhere, hissing. With a massive bang, half the cabin was blown away, and the YouTuber let out a blood-curdling scream into the microphone. That highly entertaining video racked up 2 million views in a single day. The comment section went crazy, people demanding to know what game it was, wanting to blow up their friends' houses, asking for the link to buy it. You tremblingly switched to your PayPal merchant backend. The notification chime, which usually rang once every few days, was now refreshing frantically like a broken stopwatch. €10 received. €10 received. Tens of euros were rolling in per minute, thousands per hour. The game spread virally across forums, and more YouTubers started streaming it. Your servers crashed multiple times under the sudden influx of download requests, forcing you to rent expensive Amazon cloud servers overnight. During the peak weeks of traffic, you were selling over 1,000 copies a day. That meant clearing over €10,000 in net profit daily. The first thing you did every morning was stare blankly at the tens of thousands of extra dollars sitting in your account. 3 months later, when you finally walked into your boss's office to hand in your resignation, your steps were as light as walking on clouds. Because at that moment, a solid €720,000 was sitting in your PayPal account. You were free. You rented a spacious office in downtown Stockholm, pulled in former colleagues, and founded your company, Mojang. You were ready to go big and perfect the game. But reality soon dealt you a heavy blow. Just as you were about to pay your new employees their first month's salary and cover the exorbitant annual server fees, you logged into PayPal to withdraw funds. Instead of your balance, a cold line of red text popped up. Your account is suspected of abnormal money movement and high-risk operations. The balance has been frozen indefinitely pending investigation. Your blood ran cold. That was €720,000. Your entire life savings. You frantically called PayPal customer service, but all you got were robotic, boilerplate responses. It was then you realized how you looked to the eyes of a traditional financial giant, an individual with no registered corporate background yet, no publisher, no physical discs, receiving tens of thousands of microtransactions daily from all over the world, including the Middle East and Russia. To an anti-money laundering algorithm, you were the textbook definition of an international money launderer. Those were the 3 most desperate weeks of your entrepreneurial journey. You had just quit your job and burned your bridges. Your partners needed to eat, and the servers were burning through cash every day. You were even prepared to mortgage your house to borrow from loan sharks. Left with no other options, you pleaded for help from your players on Twitter and your blog, admitting knowing that your funds were locked and development might stall. Millions of players were furious. They spontaneously organized, flooding PayPal's official Twitter with protests, while major tech media outlets ran headlines about a Silicon Valley giant strangling an indie game genius. Under immense public pressure, PayPal finally initiated a manual review and unfroze the funds. You survived, but the experience taught you a chilling lesson. When your wealth grows faster than your ability to control it, disaster can strike at any moment. In 2011, Minecraft officially launched. It was no longer just a game. It had become a global phenomenon. The numbers in your bank account began jumping by the tens of millions. You hosted an exclusive convention in Las Vegas, where tens of thousands of players worshipped you like a rock star. But you quickly discovered that money couldn't buy peace. It only magnified all the negativity. As the player base surged past tens of millions, the community turned sour. A massive number of third-party server hosts started using your game to ruthlessly rake in cash. They sold VIP diamond swords to miners for hundreds of dollars, turning the game environment toxic. Angry parents wrote letters cursing you for scamming their kids. To protect ordinary players, you aggressively changed the end-user license agreement in 2014, strictly banning any pay-to-win commercial practices on servers. You thought you were doing the right thing, but you messed with too many people's bottom lines. Overnight, you went from being a creator god to a dictator. Those server hosts incited hundreds of thousands of players to cyberbully you. Your Twitter was stuffed with messages telling you to go to hell and accusing you of ruining the game. Someone doxed your home address and threatened to bomb your house. Others mailed you packages with death threats. You sat in your sprawling CEO office, watching the vicious curses on your screen, your hands trembling uncontrollably. You relied on sleeping pills every night. You developed severe anxiety. You were terrified to leave the house, and even opening a social media app required immense courage. You created a world of absolute freedom, but now that world only wanted to swallow you whole. On June 16, 2014, you completely broke down. Having not slept for 3 days, you lay on the couch, feeling like an expendable clown hoisted onto a pedestal only to be ruthlessly tossed into the mud. You picked up your phone. You didn't contact your PR team, nor did you call your lawyers. Instead, with a desperate, self-destructive impulse, you typed a single message on Twitter. Anyone want to buy my share of Mojang so I can move on with my life? Getting hate for trying to do the right thing is not my gig. You hit send. You thought it was just a helpless rant, but you had no idea that those few dozen characters had instantly set the entire North American tech sphere and Wall Street boiling. 5 minutes after the tweet went live, your private phone rang. 10 minutes later, your company's CEO burst into your office, panting. EA's CEO wanted to get on a call with you. Activision Blizzard's MA team was already booking flights to Stockholm. Phil Spencer from Microsoft said they would match any offer, no matter the price. Your momentary rant had turned into a frenzied gladiator arena for the world's top capital, all fighting for the next gateway to the internet. The ultimate winner was Microsoft. There was no intense, drawn-out tug-of-war. They audited your books, looked at your terrifying active user data, and pushed an acquisition contract directly in front of you. $2.5 billion. All cash, paid in full. The weather in Stockholm was beautiful the day you signed. You put down the pen, securing more money than you could spend in 100 lifetimes. You walked out of the company you had built with your own hands and never looked back. You had reached the ultimate wish fulfillment, ending in a worldly sense. You flew to Los Angeles at a real estate auction in Beverly Hills. You casually called out a staggering price of $70 million without batting an eye, directly beating superstars Jay-Z and Beyoncé to buy a mega mansion with an unbeatable night view. You blew millions of dollars in a single night at Las Vegas casinos. You chartered yachts, constantly surrounded by Hollywood celebrities and supermodels. But the end of the story didn't freeze on champagne and yachts. Late one night, a year later, the mansion party had just cleared out, the floor littered with expensive liquor bottles, cigar ash, and discarded shoes. You walked alone to the floor-to-ceiling candy wall you spent millions building, and suddenly felt an unprecedented wave of suffocation. You opened Twitter, faced your millions of followers, and wrote the true feelings of becoming a billionaire. You wrote that you could hang out in Ibiza with famous friends and do whatever you wanted, but you had never felt more isolated. You wrote about sitting in Sweden waiting for friends with normal jobs and families to have free time, just watching your reflection in the monitor, feeling like nothing. You wrote about finding a great girl, only for her to be terrified of your lifestyle and choose a normal person instead. You turned off your phone and stepped out onto the balcony. The infinity pool below reflected the dazzling yet cold lights of Los Angeles. You started from zero, single-handedly writing lines of code. You cashed out for $2.5 billion, defeated all your rivals, and stood at the absolute pinnacle of the capitalist world. You beat this game called life, but you found that, besides money, you had absolutely nothing left.